Hey everybody, welcome to the next installment in the Grow Executive series. I'm Janine Wright, editor of Greenhouse Grower, and I'm here today with Chris Cimaglio and Todd Downing of Best Human Capital and Advisory Group. They both were presenters at our recent Grow Executive Summit that we had back in December, and their whole presentation was around succession planning. And I thought it'd be great to bring them on and talk through some of the stuff that they had, because it was very pertinent information for what a lot of people are going to be experiencing with businesses and the age, retirement age coming. So I thought it'd be good information for our broader audience. So Chris and Todd, welcome. I wanted to talk a little bit, just for starting off, you guys shared some statistics in that presentation, and obviously there's a problem in the industry when you have 80% of owners that are not prepared with a succession plan or some kind of a plan. So obviously that's a big concern. And you talked a little bit, I think, in that presentation about the barriers to it. Do you think like the biggest barrier is just that it's such a complicated process? Like they don't know where to start?
We get that a lot. Typically we'll ask the question, when are you ready to, kind of hang it up and exit your business? And the answer is 5 years. And we ask that question again a year or two from now, and the answer is still 5 years. It's one of those where, we have so much of our own value and emotions and our identity wrapped up in our own businesses. It's kind of easy to say that, well, that's something I'll deal with down the road. And what we're trying to communicate to owners, especially in this industry, is that there's no time like now to get started. I mean, even if you're in your 30s and 40s and, your exit could be 30 years from now. We've never had a client complain that they did too much planning for this.
Yeah, I think, listening to the presentation, it seemed to me that a lot of the strategic planning is also around the succession plan, whatever it's going to be. So to me, it would make sense that the earlier you start on that, the better off you're going to be, because it's going to play into your overall, end game.
Exactly. And this industry is amazing, but one of the aspects that's unique with the owners is so many of the companies in our industry, everything goes through the owner. Or too much goes through the owner. They still have way too much responsibility to be able to potentially exit their company and retire. And it's going to take 6 months to 2 years at the minimum to get it optimized so they can do that.
Yeah, I think with, the family nature of the businesses in our industry, I could see that being a hard, a common problem in the industry. And, I think you guys said at one point during the presentation, pick your successor, start figuring out who that's going to be so that they can be trained and getting ready to take over when that time comes.
Yeah, and we deal with a lot of owners and clients where there is no family succession. They've worked their whole life to put their son or daughter through law school or to become a doctor, that they don't have anybody to take over in the business. So we help them, figure out how and who would be the next logical person to take over, because a business that is so owner dependent and so owner centric is very unattractive to a potential buyer. We need people in place, human capital, that knows what's going on, what to do. And one of the first things we start with, Janine, when we work with a client, is working on a business continuity plan. And that's, God forbid anything happens to you, the owner, who has the passwords? Who can continue the business? How people in the business going to get paid? And having that business continuity plan then leads to a whole host of other issues and preparation items and what we call workshops, as we go through the process.
Yeah. I was really interested in that aspect when you were talking about kind of the human capital and how much that can add value to the business or not, and it just really seems like that makes sense to as an organization to work on that structure a little bit ahead of that succession planning to make sure that you have the, different layers in place that can keep it going as long as it needs to till the transition takes place.
It does. And, when we touch on the human capital part, because Chris touched on the family succession aspect or lack thereof. But the other part of it is just the talent in our industry overall. So if the family isn't there, we also have a really big gap with the generation after the baby boomers who own these. And that's creating a challenge of, well, where is that leadership coming from? And I would say most of our current clients that we're supporting through this process, they're having to look at bringing on a strong leader in name whatever the title is, CEO, president, general manager, whatever that title may be. But it is very dependent on the talent in the organization for a buyer to say, wow, that's a valuable asset that I want to buy.
That was another kind of interesting thing to me. You talked about each side doing their homework. Like, the buyer is going to be doing their homework to really look at that business and really scrutinize it. And so on the grower side, they've got to do their homework to make sure they're prepared for that. And the more, the better they do their homework, the better sell they're going to get out of it. And I think, listening to it, I was like, wow, there's so much to this. And I know, Chris, you just received your CEPA certification to kind of like, so it's, if I can remember it, it's Certified Exit Advisor or Plan Advisor.
Plan advisor, right, through the Exit Planning Institute. And was a wonderful, educational experience for us, but it also validated a lot of what we've been doing, with our clients over the years. And, when we look at the valuation of a business, it's easy to say, well, show me your financials and I'll come up with a valuation for you. But there's so much more involved in it. This is why we talk about recasting EBITDA and looking at the 4 C's. And we just talked about one of them, which is human capital. Well, there's also social capital, there's structural capital, there's customer capital. All of them very important. These are things that revolve around company culture. How attractive are you to retain your human capital? We've even seen a trend going on in acquisitions, and merger and acquisition activity has never been stronger in this country, or in this industry for that matter. A lot of private equity groups, a lot of family offices are coming in because it's an attractive industry right now. So it's important to have all those items in place and optimized, prior to the sale, because not only does it build value in the business, anybody can look at a balance sheet or the financials and say, okay, I'm going to take this multiple of EBITDA and this is what I'm going to pay. But it's really the 4 C's, and especially the human capital, that really make a difference when somebody's looking to acquire your business. It can make upwards of 60 to 70% of the value of your business. We're hearing terms right now like acqui-hiring, acquiring somebody for their people. And, especially as Todd mentioned, there's such a dearth and void of leadership. It's almost like we skipped a generation. So your human capital, your social capital, your processes and procedures that we call structural capital, and your customer base or your customer capital, all very important and all relate to the value of your business.
Yeah, I know you guys mentioned that the tangible stuff, the tangible part of that, and the intangibles are becoming more important. And I think, certainly on the veg side, we've seen that where with investors looking at a lot of those operations will say, what are they doing about sustainability? What are they doing about this? Is as attractive to the investor as other things that they're doing, which I think is a real shift that we're starting to see in the industry.
Absolutely.
The investors are definitely looking at your social why in the future. I know we talked to several just at a recent conference, and why are they interested? Well, they're asking the social why question. And as Chris mentioned, even the customer capital side, if we look at a balance sheet of two exact same revenue companies and do a valuation just off of financials, but one company has 60% of their sales with one customer, you've got a huge disparity in the interest level.
Real value killer.
Yeah, you've just destroyed your value.
Yeah. It seemed like when you guys were walking through the different aspects of it, to me, I just kept thinking of diversity, like diversity in your customers, diversity in, these things are going to make your business more attractive and more opportunities there. So, one thing I wanted to ask is, I know you guys talked about, and I thought this was very interesting, how, we have all these baby boomers, they're getting ready to retire. And there's going to be a lot of businesses in some kind of transition, whether it's selling to somebody else or transitioning to family. And, you made the point too that, the millennials, the generations coming up, they don't think about business quite the same way. How do you think that's going to affect like the succession planning? I know you talked about you have to look at the timing of it, but is that going to make it hard for some of these businesses to transition over to a new generation?
Yes. When we look at the baby boomer population, and the pandemic has accelerated so much of this. People are looking at their own mortality, they're looking at their purpose. And we see this in the Great Resignation, and we see this with business owners too. Baby boomers are 25% of the population, but they're 61% of the owners of these companies. And over the next 10 years, we're looking at over $13 trillion of business wealth changing hands. It's staggering. And there's quite a difference between the baby boomer generation compared to Generation X and the millennials. Baby boomers, hardworking, very much, about legacy, and the demographics point to a very entrepreneurial generation. The generations that are following, not so much so. And we see this even in families where, the son or daughter takes a look at mom and dad and says, boy, you guys work hard. I want something different. This is too much for me.
Or if I'm running this, I'm not going to run it this way because I'm not going to work that hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So generationally, there's quite a divide there. And we see this in a lot of our clients, and, where, the kids just are not interested, or if they are interested, as Todd alluded to, they're going to do it differently.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to watch those, transitions taking place. One thing I kind of thought of in this too is, you talked in your presentation about the timing of things and, 3 to 5 years, but if you're selling to employees, that could be a lot longer. So what if you are a grower that's kind of behind the game, and they're like, okay, I know I need to do this within 2 years or whatever. Is there no hope for them, or there's certain steps you take with that kind of thing to kind of catch them up, I guess, and where they need to be in the process?
Yes. And we've had clients come to us and say, I want to be out of my business in 90 days. We back them away from that right away. You're looking at a minimum of 9 to 12 months to sell your business and expect a reasonable return. The more time, the better, because that time allows us to help them maximize the value of their business, maximize and optimize their operations so that it's more attractive to a buyer. It gives us more time to address those things that buyers look for in a business. Suppose we have a highly owner-centric, owner-dependent business. Well, we need to start talking replacement or handing off some of those responsibilities and defining a successor. But we generally start with 9 to 12 months and go from there. The reason being is, and we try to prepare people as much as possible for this. Yes, there is the attractiveness of the business, but there's so many things that are involved in what we call or what everybody calls the due diligence process. I mean, it can be soul crushing in a lot of instances. And we've seen a lot of deals fall apart because the owner's like, well, wait, I've just given you everything. And now you're bringing this up or you're bringing that up. And we try to prepare them as much as possible for that. Anything less than 9 to 12 months, we're kind of getting into almost liquidation type territory. And from our experience, that's kind of a last resort. That's if things have to be sold or have to change hands because of one of the 5 Ds. That could be death, disability, divorce, distress. And we try to allow enough time to prepare for anything that might happen, but as well as also increase the value of the business.
Yeah, it just really struck me that this is kind of a process that may not be the best thing to navigate on your own. So, as people are looking for that company or person, planner or whatever to help them with the process, what should they be looking for in like the people they're working with or the firm they're working with? And then, like how, obviously, timing, it's all about timing, where in their business should they start working on the succession plan to kind of, get the maximum benefits of that?
I think the first step, and to answer both those questions, the first step is they need to focus on themselves. And before we do anything, we're talking to that owner about what their next why is. Because again, there's facts. We have metrics on this now about how many owners exit their business and within 6 months, they're miserable. And it's because they didn't have their next why. They didn't have something they were moving towards. So that's the first step, is actually focusing on themselves and what they're doing next. And the second aspect of this is a team of people to get this through. It's not just us or a firm like us, but you need a really good lawyer. You need a really good CPA. You need a really good financial planner. And then you're likely going to need a broker as part of it. And what we do is we're kind of a coach, or we manage all these facets, because an accountant is great at accounting. A lawyer is great at the legal, but you need somebody to pull all the parts together for the totality of the business. And that's what we do in support of the companies we're helping with this.
Yeah, we kind of take a 3-legged stool approach to this too. 75% of owners that sell their businesses profoundly regret it within 6 to 12 months. 75%. They have their self-worth, their identity, their sense of community all wrapped up in their business. So what Todd pointed to, extremely important. We focus first on the personal. What is your why? We're not leaving something, we're heading towards something. So what are we heading toward? Second, we look at the business. And then third, we look at financial, not the financials of the business, but their own financials. Do they have enough to retire? How much of their retirement is wrapped up in the sale of their business? So those 3 tracks, those 3 legs of the stool really drive our process from the start. And we also work on the business continuity planning aspects, owner centricity, but we really try to dig deep to make sure that they're prepared personally as well as business wise for the next chapter in their life.
Yeah, it kind of struck me as the whole succession planning process is, it seems like really a good way to take a deep dive into your business and what's working, what's not working, what do we need to change. So, at least for me, after hearing that presentation, I'm like, wow, this is such an important aspect to get right about your business.
And it's interesting you bring that up, because the clients that we've been helping, I think every one of them will tell you that I've improved my SOPs. I've improved my bottom line. I've improved my future longevity of the business because I've been focusing on these things. And oh, by the way, because I'm really focusing on the business and not in the business so much anymore, this has been kind of fun.
Yeah. So, well, Todd and Chris, thank you for being with us today. I know, obviously, there's so much more around this subject we could talk about. And, I'm sure that your firm and other firms are, can probably help with some of those really deep dive questions, but I appreciate you being here, and it's an important topic for the industry right now. So.
We appreciate it, Janine. Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
opportunity to talk about this, and we're happy to help.